Well, hi everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Sarah Hyman. I am the Assistant Director for Leadership in the Center for Student Involvement. And today we are hosting a Wisdom Wednesday chat, which is really just an opportunity to get to learn from leaders on campus, ranging from students to faculty and staff, about their leadership journeys and lessons they have learned through their involvement experience. So today we have Jansen Penny joining us as our guest speaker. Jansen's currently a senior in industrial engineering, and he also served as student body president in 2019 to 2020. So thank you, Jansen, for joining us and speaking with us today. I think he's got some remarks prepared, and then we'll have time for just discussion and questions and things like that. So without further ado, Jansen, I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, perfect. And can you hear me, Sarah?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay. First of all, thank you all so much for joining. I recognize many different names as well. So thank you so much for taking time out of your afternoon on this beautiful Wednesday. But so Sarah mentioned this is a Wisdom Wednesday, and something that I say before a lot of the talks that I have is kind of like a ground rule and kind of setting the tone of it. I like recognize that I really want to address that I'm a student, just like many of you. I know we have some like faculty and staff as well, but I know that when Sarah reached out, I was like, oh my gosh, I don't know how much wisdom I might have, but something that I always like to start off with is I'm just like many of you. I make mistakes. I have a full load of classes, and I struggle in different areas, and I'm definitely not a perfect person or have every wise word to share with you, but I'm so glad that you guys logged on and I have this opportunity to do that. But really at the beginning, I just kind of wanted to go through where I'm from, where I started at K-State, and then kind of go through very briefly some different things that I've done at K-State. If you're a freshman or sophomore joining, I'm really hoping that this can give a better idea of you kind of seeing like where I was at when I was in your shoes and my collegiate experience, and then moving up to junior, senior year, and then now I'm a fifth year here at K-State, going to graduate in May. So to kind of get that started, I'm from Burlington, Colorado. A lot of people don't know where that is. But the people who do, you might have stopped there for lunch on your way to Denver or the mountains or somewhere more fun in Colorado. I have my flag over here as well. Or a lot of people say they've been stranded in Burlington too. So those are my two biggest comments on that. I'm a first generation student. I never I did not go out and visit a ton of different colleges. My parents don't have any. They didn't go to college. They weren't, K-State grads who bled purple or loved, Colorado State. And so it was really kind of up to me to figure out where I was going to take those next steps after high school. But in high school, I'm sure as many of you, I was super involved, from National Honor Society, FFA, FBLA. Back in high school, you can really do it all and still be okay in all of your classes. And so the idea of college and what that involvement and leadership would look like moving forward really did scare me, because I had no idea what to expect. I had my two older sisters who did attend college, so I had them to look up to, even though they were a bit older than me. But that was something very scary for me. A way that I kind of saw it was, when you're a senior in high school, you kind of rule the school, right? You're in leadership positions in whatever clubs you're in. I did a lot of sports, even though I would not consider myself athletic, but you can really do it all. And so it was really scary for me to know that I was going to be in a school that was just the student size was 10 times larger than everyone in my own hometown. And so really trying to figure out my place at K-State really did scare me. And so I finally did decide on coming to K-State, one of the best decisions I've ever made. And when I came to Manhattan, I did not have a lot of connections. I have a lot of friends now, and I know a lot of people when they come, whether it's from Kansas City or just different areas around Kansas, they know a lot of different people. They've had older siblings be, in all these different organizations and kind of leading them through there. But I kind of felt a little bit like a lost puppy walking into K-State and pretty much trying to navigate from going from the top of the podium, right, back in high school, and I felt I just got thrown right back down to the bottom there. And so that was a challenge that I was equally excited and scared to navigate. But starting in freshman year was really when I tried to look at what is my K-State collegiate experience going to be? What was that going to look like with my major even? What was I going to study? Start out studying ag econ, and then I really looked up to different friends that I made along the way to help me navigate what I was going to get involved in, because I knew I really wanted to hit the ground running. Back in high school, you were involved in all these different things, and I wanted to do the same here at K-State. And I really came in with the mentality and something that I kind of titled this chat as well, that I really can do it all, because a lot of us did it all back in high school, and it was pretty doable back then, right? So starting off as a freshman, I was in Quest freshman honorary. I joined farmhouse fraternity, started gaining a lot of connections through there. And then what I realized pretty quickly in freshman year was throughout that entire year is when a lot of applications come out for different organizations, and where it really kind of sets you up for sophomore year, what you're going to do and where you're going to spend that time on the involvement in leadership level. And so I was also a member of the Student Foundation and was really interested in Student Governing Association as well, as I'd done work in the Colorado State Capitol back in high school, in policy and some youth advocacy groups back there. So I knew that's something that I wanted to do as well. So I was in the College of Ag. I ran to be a senator. I was the last person who got accepted to be a senator. That was pretty discouraging for me, but I made it nonetheless. And so I kind of jumped into sophomore year with a lot of these different groups building up and what that involvement would be. In Student Foundation, I was the new member educator, and in my fraternity, I ran recruitment, and then also was co-chairing different positions within Student Governing Association. But in the middle of sophomore year, kind of had a quarter life crisis there, and that is when I decided it was the night before classes started on my third semester here at K-State in the middle of sophomore year. I finally decided that I really wanted to try out engineering. I really wanted to jump over there from the College of Ag. So I called my parents the night before, pretty emotional call. And I was like, I think I'm going to switch all my classes. So 11 p.m. I got on cases, switched every one of my classes, and started next day in the College of Engineering, studying industrial engineering. And from there, I never looked back. And that is what my bachelor's degree is going to be in there as well. And sophomore year also got involved in Center of Risk Management, Education, and Research. And if you can't tell from now, some of the different things that I was listing out, things really started to build up on sophomore year. And in all that work of applications in freshman year, it kind of really hit that pinnacle sophomore year, realizing, oh my gosh, I have a lot going on here. So once I kind of got rolling into junior year, I was still doing recruitment for Farmhouse, but at that point, I really had to step back and figure out, okay, I have a lot of breadth here. I'm involved in a lot of different things, but where do I really want to go deep? And where do I want these last 2 or 3 years in my involvement in leadership to really move forward? And what am I passionate about, and where I want to develop at? And that is really when I did a lot of thought into that, and I really wanted to excel more into Student Governing Association. And middle of junior year, I had a conversation with one of my peers, Ollie Carmali, about running for student body president and vice president with him and taking some of those next steps. I'd had experience at that point, being a chair of privilege fee committee, I ran for student senator again, but for the College of Engineering. Again, I was the last one on that list, which is pretty discouraging, but hey, I made it on there, right? And so there in the middle of junior year is where I really finalized that SGA is really where I want to hone in on some of those skills um, for kind of the last part of my uh, college career. And from there, it really went from a lot of different organizations to really focusing on SGA after I did win that presidential election. So I'm going to share my screens. It just shows a couple of highlights from my time as student body president. So as myself, my vice president, we had a chief of staff, and then 17 cabinet members under us, which was 17 different very driven students that are focused on individual tasks. Some of our priorities and things that we got done, it ranged from really pushing for more and getting more funding for Cat's Cupboard. We were a big part in working with the community and campus stakeholders on getting e-scooters onto campus. The ones that you probably saw driving to class or walking around, those link scooters. We put a lot of work into with the city council making that happen, and on that screen is also us talking to the city council about that. Student body president is a lot of speaking engagements. It is a whole lot. I'm there to serve students, especially to the administrative side, and so it was a lot of communication from an entire range of students, faculty, and staff, community members, legislators in Topeka, legislators on the federal level as well. And I had so many opportunities from there. Also worked with all the college deans, wherever college you come from. We had to sit down with them and work through them on some of their fee structures and what proposals they would have. But even though all those technical parts, there was so much I also learned from conflict resolution. You would have your entire Google Calendar ready, and then you'd have a conflict come up, whether it's a public relations thing, an incident on campus, and immediately you knew your week was going to look a lot different from there. And so throughout my time as student body president, had a lot of great opportunities, and I grew so much more than just logistics of planning an event and communication, whether I was communicating to a very frustrated student, or we were sitting down with President Myers, or sitting down with not or state legislators, but also federal legislators, and lobbying different areas for K-State and standing up for K-State students on that. And during all the summers, all these leadership opportunities really provided a great springboard into getting different internships along the way. I had an internship with Land O'Lakes Inc., which if you can think about the butter, I did a supply chain internship there, got to go to Malawi, South Africa, Washington, D.C., travel around the United States with them. I worked at a mill in Nebraska where we made different products for cattle and pigs. And then just this past summer, since I was moving less towards an ag background and really towards that engineering side, I worked for Honeywell in Kansas City there. But really here during my 5th year, I wrapped up my role as student body president last April. And so now a really big capstone of my collegiate experience has been in Blue Key Senior Honorary, where now I get to coordinate with a co-coordinator the Quest Freshman Honorary Program. And so it has really kind of come full circle. And right now I sit on one committee in SGA, the same committee that I sat in on as a freshman as well. So really kind of wrapping up that entire circle there. But throughout all that, I've learned a lot about finding balance. And so I mentioned earlier, I really jumped in thinking that I can do it all, because in high school, a lot of us can do it all and can manage that. And that is just not the case here in college. So this is how I learned you can't do it all. I'm in engineering. I think a lot in graphs and graphics. I get made fun of a lot of that, but that is how I'm going to kind of explain my reasoning here. So I made a graph, of course. So finding the balance, and on the bottom here, or on the x-axis, we have my time here at K-State from freshman year all the way here until I was a senior. And this really mimics what I was speaking about earlier about my early involvement. Freshman year, I was really in kind of a limbo stage on where am I going to find where I fit in student organizations and in my curriculum, in my major. What is that going to look like? And I did feel fulfilled in a lot of those ways because I really wanted to be involved. I really wanted to make a difference. And then once that sophomore and junior year came around, boy, did I get what I was asking for. And so you can see I made it max out over 100%, because really that was a large making and breaking point for me in a lot of different areas. I definitely struggled with my time management. I struggled with my mental health, and it really came to a point where I was like, okay, I really need to focus in. And I had I had a lot of breadth. I was involved in a lot, but there was but 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 I was making a lot of sacrifices for that. So my next graph, I also added my relationships onto that. Relationships with my family, with my friends, and I found a direct opposite correlation in that. As the more I got involved, the more I realized it really took time away from those relationships that I spent so much time building at the beginning of my collegiate career. I spent a lot of time on that. And then that is where I saw a lot of lack and parts where I struggled, and where I really hope. And whether it's working with my Quest members who are all freshmen now, or anyone wants to sit down, this is kind of how I explain where it's really important to find that balance. For me, it took throughout my entire 5 years in order to find that balance. And I really hope the visual graph, that's just the way that I think, but uh, can kind of help elaborate on what that looked like for me, kind of finding that balance, smoothing out your time commitments to organizations and involvement, and really working on that leadership, but still making sure you maintain and prioritize re- relationships in my life. And there through sophomore and junior year, uh, the only reason I made it through that and really came out on the other end was I had a lot of friends and family who were able to keep me very accountable and call me out in a lot of areas that they knew where I was lacking, and they pointed out a lot of my blind spots that I did not see, and that helped me create a lot of change in the way that I spent my time, in the way I said yes to opportunities, and increasingly said no to different opportunities as well. And that was there's a lot of curves there, but that whatever that curve is, it was a big learning curve for me, but it did take a while to figure that out. So kind of going into some of the lessons that I've learned. So lessons in involvement, depth over breadth. I know that back in high school, myself and a lot of my friends, you were pretty much shallowly involved in anything and everything, and that's something that I thought would translate well into college. Realized very quickly it did not. And so kind of the strategy that I took, I believe I took a little bit too aggressively, is first looking out into different organizations that you'd be interested in, no matter where they're at, and then selecting and choosing where on that breadth. So we see that T in front of us. So that is kind of the breadth. There's a lot of different things that you can get involved in, but you don't go very deep into them. And so I always tell people, we want to be in a T model, figure out what that breadth is, and then through that figure out where you want to dive deep and go all in on that, and then you can self-select from there what you need to take off your plate in order to be able to better manage that. And then also in involvement, I always like to have three different Venn diagrams put together too. I think it's very important for people to get involved in three different things. Something that's campus or community wide. For me, that was student governing association and student foundation. Those were things that span across all of campus, and it wasn't for a specific sector. Second, somewhere outside of campus as well. I really found that in my fraternity, and being able to seek opportunities that always weren't directly coordinated with K-State, and it really helped me get involved more in the community as well. And then a third section that I'd encourage everyone to get involved in is something that's major or college specific. With me totally changing colleges in the middle of my career, this was more of a challenge for me. I was really involved in the College of Ag, and I really had to seek out some of those other opportunities in the College of Engineering to do that. But those are three sectors that I think really diversify your involvement, diversify your skill set, and also whether it's a resume or job application, it really gives you a lot more to talk about, but it also gives you a lot more takeaways on that as well. So lessons learned with leadership, kind of talked about it at the beginning, but something that I tell a lot of my friends is vulnerability is a strength, especially through my time being student body president. I got really comfortable. I got really comfortable sharing some of my faults. I got really comfortable with apologizing when I knew I did something wrong, or I didn't put in all the effort there. I think that something that's really important. I think it's easy in organizations to look up to the president or the juniors and seniors and be like, wow, like they like have it all together. They come to this meeting prepared, but at the end of the day, that just is always not the case. And I think that really helps you gain trust among fellow members, among your peers. And I believe that you can be a better leader by sharing some of your struggles and being very like vulnerable in ways that you can improve on that. And that's something that still hard for me to share all those vulnerabilities, but um, by all means, I believe it is a strength that a lot of people don't leverage more often. And then also under leadership, I have an all-time favorite quote. It's called "Man in the Arena" by Theodore Roosevelt, and I'd really encourage you to look it up after this. But the premise of this quote is that there's an arena that is where all the fighting, bickering, that is where the grit and the hard work takes place, is inside the arena. And then you have your spectators on the outside of the arena. And um, definitely throughout the beginning of my college career, I really cared a lot about what other people thought about me, what other people thought about my leadership. I wanted to be seen as competent at all times, and whatever the decisions you make, I especially saw this as being student body president. You're going to have people who criticize you, people who make sure to point out every time you're wrong. And so one of the ways I've learned about how to think about that, and what feedback to really take to heart and make action on it, or feedback to just listen to and kind of brush it off, has to do with that arena. If that criticism and those improvements are coming from people who are in the arena with you, people who are putting in the work, people who are trying, who are also really trying to do good, wanting to fight along, wanting to help you there, those are the people where their criticisms should matter, and it should take into account. But those people who are on the front rows, or clear up in the nosebleeds of that arena, those are opinions that I'd learned very quickly are are ones that we can listen to, but should not take to heart. You know, to get a little less abstract on that and to provide a better example, definitely had to do with a lot of controversy with I throughout my student body presidency career with white nationalism, what that means with the First Amendment, what that means with laws and regulations. I had to make choices that half people really disagreed with, half people really did, and it really came down to things on social media that a lot of the different words that I got on social media and critiques like that does not matter. Twitter accounts that, you know, have a meme as their profile picture and really want to get you riled up are completely not worth it. It's those people sitting in the meetings with you on even if they disagree with you or not. The people that are in the arena, I found is really the ones where you're going to find the most progress with and the opinions that really matter. So that is what I would encourage to everyone when receiving criticism and working on that teamwork for working on teams where there's always going to be disagreements. There's going to be people on your side and off of it. I always ask myself, are they in the arena with me? Are they wanting to create change with me? Or are they spectators on the outside? And that's kind of how I gauge, do I let that roll off, or do I need to pursue that further and create further change in that? But altogether, throughout my experience, involvement and leadership here at K-State, I think some of my biggest takeaways, you know, sure, you learn a lot how to send a good email, well formatted, how to make things clear and concise, how to talk to students, how to talk to administrators, how to lobby, how to logistically plan an event and make sure catering's good, everyone knows what they're doing. A lot of those like harder skills, I would say you obviously get a lot of those, but I think I took the most out of those soft skills, out of that conflict resolution, the negotiation skills, whether it's working with faculty senate and the provost on you know, trying to get mental health days or trying to secure funding even through student senate, sitting down, having those conversations, trying to make sure everyone's voices are heard and the most equitable and fair decision is made at the end of the day. I think those are the biggest challenges and the biggest learning opportunities I've had from my involvement in K-State. And you know, I think I think the impact on that through my career has definitely been seen in different things that I can speak upon, and whether it's a scholarship interview or a job or a job interview as well. You can have an entire resume filled up, but it's the experiences behind some of those things on the resume that I totally believe that the interviewer on the other side can see you know, how really invested you were in that, and in what speaking points you do or don't have for a lot of those soft skills. And I'm really grateful for my time here at K-State. There's so many ups and downs, but you know, I look back and sure, there are definitely different things that I would do differently, but I really don't like having regrets in that. And it's been very fulfilling. And I'll open it up for any questions, any lapses that I had. I'd love to answer them.
Thank you, Jansen. Yeah, if anybody has any questions, feel free to turn on your video if you feel comfortable, unmute yourself. Andrew, I see your hand raised. Do you have a question?
Yeah, I do.
Go for it.
Yeah, Jansen, thank you for the you know, the advice and information. I was kind of wondering, since you're student body president, which is it's a very intense job, didn't overlap with COVID-19 that much. And like COVID-19 has definitely caused challenges for my time management and like, you know, my own involvement in SGA. And so I was wondering like how you felt about like what the differences and the similarities are between the challenge of being student body president and then the challenge of being involved in like just what you're involved in now, but with COVID as well.
Yeah. So kind of speaking on the like challenges and differences in that kind of. Okay. Yeah. And so it was last year. I was out on spring break, and I was still a student body president during all of this time, and that's when we got the final email, the termination. The rest of my spring break was I was I was down in Florida, so this was before we knew it would get to where it is. So a lot of it was spent on Zoom calls, phone calls, trying to figure out what was going to happen next. Um, and then I slowly transitioned out on that. So no, I did not get a full COVID-19, experience in student government. I think some of the biggest differences is, and some of my biggest worries as well with COVID-19. I did an internship over the summer, which was largely virtual as well. And right now running Quest 2, we definitely started out throughout the year having a lot more virtual experiences. I think one of the hardest things that I've seen through all those is communicating virtually and also creating connections virtually. It's been very hard to inspire connections and encourage relationships, and I really feel for all the freshmen who are just coming on campus, especially speaking towards running Quest. And how do you get people to connect in a very authentic way when virtual communication and a lot of times can come off very unauthentic? And so I think that has been the biggest challenge, being like a coordinator and being someone who wants to connect people together. I'd say that is the biggest challenge there, especially on the like working side with my internship, doing all that virtual. It was in my previous internships, I felt like it was so much easier to have your weekly or daily quick meeting with your manager and being able to sit down and push a few pieces of paper across the table and being able to explain with your words, with your body language, different tasks, and being able to come to conclusions very quickly. I think that some of my experiences, I think it kind of slows down the chain of communication, which with a lot of things going over like email as well. And so that has been definitely a challenge that I've seen as well. Things that you could sit down with all the stakeholders in person in a meeting and get everything hashed out in 45 minutes. I think now, even if you do try to do that on Zoom, I think it does drag out to an extra week or two to try to figure out and make sure everyone's on the same page. So those are two quick things.
Jansen, in the chat, we have a question from Marco, who thanks you for your presentation and asks, how do you manage your priorities with all of your commitments?
Yes. Okay. So I definitely still have a lot of commitments, and managing priorities has really been a challenge. And sophomore in like mid junior year, I'll be honest, I did a very poor job in managing those priorities. And I think the main reason for that is not having it set what those priorities are and what level they should play in my time commitment. I'll be very honest, I had my role as student body president as number one in my mind. And then after that, I had school, and then after that I had my relationships with my friends and family. And I realized very quickly that that was a 180 flip of what it should have been, and all that definitely took a very big toll on me. So after that senior year stint is when I really had to analyze specifically what the order my priorities are in, and then really sticking to my guns on if there is overlaps in like time commitments there, that higher priority is the one that gets the time, and I have to say no to the ones that are 2, 3, 4 down on on the list. Earlier on, I used to, try to say yes to all of them, but now I think it's something that I've learned is drawing much harder lines on what those priorities are and sticking to it. And then on the like technical piece, something that I've utilized since freshman year is a Google Calendar. Um, my friends like to joke with me because even if I'm getting coffee with someone or I have dinner planned, all of that goes on my Google Calendar. And it's not because I like to treat it like a meeting. It's just because I want to make sure that for that amount of time, I'm there, I'm present, I'm with them, and that when I am going out to dinner or when I am going to watch a movie with someone, I'm not going to be on my laptop answering emails. And so really kind of separating kind of the like work or school or involvement versus that time with friends and family.
Great. And Charles, I see your hand raised. Do you have a question for Jansen?
Yes, I first want to thank you for sharing your time today with us.
Yeah.
I know you talked about switching your major. I think it was sophomore year. You said, what was that difficult? And what advice do you have to someone who may be on the fence or who may be thinking about switching to a different major, like sophomore year or even junior year?
Yeah. And so so I was in ag econ, and I've grown up on a farm and ranch my entire life, and I'll be honest, I felt a lot of pressure, very on. They never clearly said it, but I felt a lot of pressure from my family back at home to pursue that, to go back to the farm. And so that's kind of the reason that I chose that from the beginning. And I didn't allow any other options. And so something that I really wish I would have done and I'd like advice to do is really looking into all those other options. When I did get serious about changing it, I set up times with both students and then like faculty in the College of Business and the College of Engineering to learn more about what the curriculum looked like, to look at the job outlook and what careers could come out of that, and looking at if those careers would align with my skills and interests. Another point I would say is the earlier the better, but if you do make up that mind, never think it's too late. Something that was very scary for me was knowing if I did change majors, I'm going from ag to engineering, and you can imagine that there's not a lot of crossover in what gets checked off my DARS list. And I knew I was going to go an extra year for that. And that was never part of my plan to go 5 years in college, but it really came down to prioritizing, do I want to leave here with a major that I know I'm very interested in, have an option of career choices that I know I have interest and possible skills in, and I can build up those skills along the way, and do it in 5 years, or do I want to stick to my current plan, and just stick this out and see what happens? And it really came to sacrificing, it's going to be one more year. It's going to be that much more money as well. There's a lot of factors into that, but this is also 4, 5, or 6 years of your entire career. So if you have to add on another year or two, also just have to realize like we are still very young and there's like a lot to come, and just had I had to balance, am I going to possibly regret this 10 years down the road? Am I going to regret that more than if I regret going one more year to college? And that's kind of how I made that balance and choice.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Are there any other questions for Jansen or that you'd like to discuss together as a group? I'll ask one. Jansen, is there anything throughout your time here at K-State, whether it's a leadership lesson or it's about, like you're talking about, not over involving yourself, those kind of things, but is there anything that you learned through your experience that has surprised you?
Oh boy, anything that has surprised me. Yes, something definitely does come come to mind on this, especially when looking for like mentors and networking in general. Something that is just on me. Uh, I'm definitely someone who doesn't want to, be a bother to anyone. I don't want to add any extra work on others. And that was my mindset in going into finding like mentors and people to go out and ask about all these things. And something very surprising. I'm sure for many people who have more experience than me, they're like, okay, like of course, but I didn't realize is there are so many people out there, whether they are upperclassmen, juniors and seniors, or if they're like faculty and staff who would like love to sit down and like talk to you about your like current trajectory or current like career path or what like could be next. um people like people would absolutely love to like sit down and chat for 30 minutes, an hour, and get coffee and like hear about that. And that was something that I just always had in my mind, like, oh my gosh, like they are they're super important. They have a tight, they probably have a big schedule. Like I'm probably like, they do not want to talk to me, but like people do. And so I learned, i i I definitely learned like reach out to people, ask for help, ask for advice, because people do want to help out.
Great. Braden, do you have a question?
Yeah. So thank you, Jansen, for your talk. But so I was gonna ask on your fraternity involvement, did you ever feel like there was almost a conflict of interest, being that you had to be more committed to your fraternity brothers or to your fraternity than to some of your other commitments?
That is a good question, Braden. uh yeah, I definitely think that was a large challenge that for me, it was almost like the decision of, during during that sophomore freshman year period is when I personally had to make a choice, where am I going to get that depth at. And kind of like you mentioned, is that something that was going to happen. I'm in all these different organizations, a fraternity being one, and is that the one where I was going to really go deep and really pursue leadership opportunities there. So that definitely was like challenging to kind of navigate. Am I wanting to take my experience more on campus, something like student foundation and SGA, or do I want to stay at a fraternity where I've lived at for 2 years and valued a lot of those relationships there. And so the decision that I made was to really take all that aim and focus on campus, but do my best to really help out that other organization the best I can too. So you're exactly right.
Thank you.
Other questions? Or Jansen, oh, Madison, maybe?
Hey, Jansen. I guess my question to you would be like, when did you realize or was there a realization point when you realized like your relationships were down and your involvement was too high? Was there like a specific moment, or was it just more of like burnout? Maybe, I guess would be a good way to say it.
No, Maddie, that is a great question. Yeah, there was a very specific moment in time. One of my best friends, he actually wrote me a letter and left it on my desk in my room, and that was, and in it explained a lot about like, hey, like I've seen a lot of different changes in not just how much I see you or how much time you spend with friends, or how much time you like go home to see your family, but also in your like overall mood and like attitude. And he was like, and probably your like mental health as well. And in that letter he said, I see that, I know a lot of others see that, and like we like really want to like help you if this is something what you want to like continue doing, or if you want to change course, like we're here to like help. And so that was like a very like eye-opening moment, because it took other people to reach out and see things that I did not see in myself, because it was kind of a gradual build up to that point. And when you're kind of gradually getting there, you really don't notice the week to week differences, but those people on the outside do notice the differences from this semester or from last semester to like this semester. And like they're the ones to be like, that's a big difference. But even though I couldn't realize that, other people could too. And so I really wish I would have like reached out a little bit more and started like gaining more of that. But it really took other people reaching out to me first. And I'm so like thankful for that like aha moment and like let's get back on track. So
It sounds like you have some really great supportive friends, Jansen. It's nice that they reached out to you.
yes, yeah, they're great.
Well, if there are no other questions, Jansen, I didn't know if anything came up that you wanted to add, a few final comments. Otherwise, I have some things to share with everybody before we go. Okay.
I think I'm good. The floor is yours, Sarah.
Well, thank you all for being here today. And thank you, especially Jansen, for being vulnerable and sharing your story with us and answering our questions, and really just giving us some insight onto the lessons, as we say, that you've learned through your time here. And hopefully they'll be beneficial for others to hear as well. I am going to now share my screen really quick with everyone. So Jansen was gracious enough to be our guest speaker today for our Wisdom Wednesday. Tomorrow, we're going to host a leadership workshop called That's My Type, Understanding Yourself as a Student Leader. This workshop is going to focus on personality assessments and different tools you can use to help understand your leadership style. This workshop will also be recorded, so if you're unable to join us tomorrow at 3, you can check this out on our Center for Student Involvement YouTube channel. And then next Thursday, we are going to have a virtual leadership summit, and that is going to take place primarily on our Instagram account, which is kstate_CSI. But we'll also have resources available on this event page I'm sharing with you here and on our Twitter account as well. So feel free to check it out. We'll have resources, speakers, engagement opportunities, prizes, all that good stuff. And then here in a couple of weeks, we'll have another Wisdom Wednesday, and our guest speaker on that day will be Professor Shardy Baird from sociology. She's also the executive director of the K-State Advancement for Women in Science and Engineering Office, or CAUSE, and she'll be speaking with us about how she has found peace through persisting and prioritizing. So a little bit about self-advocacy and working with social justice as well. So we have some really fun upcoming events. We'll hope you'll take part of. You can find this all on Org Central on the Resources for Student Organizations page. But with that, I just want to thank Jansen again for speaking with us today, and all of you for being here. And we hope you have a wonderful rest of your afternoon.